I recently received an email from Gary, and he was really surprised how his stress levels day over day, week over week, were just constantly going up for about a month. And he was asking me, Rob, what could be contributing to that? And I wanted to share his experience with you only because if you've been following me for any period of time and you've invested in the Garmin platform, I want to make sure that you're aware of what to look for on your own dashboard. So let's start with a couple things. On your Garmin, every single day that you're wearing it, you have a report both on your phone and on the Garmin dashboard that allows you to see what is your total calorie burnt. Notice I use the word total because Garmin does a great job of partitioning off how many calories you burn in what they refer to as an active mode and how many calories do you need to sustain life. They refer to it as resting. In our world, physiological world, we refer to that as the basal metabolic needs. How many calories do you need to stay alive? Coming back to the original conversation that we had, I want you to stop and ask yourself, how many calories did you burn yesterday versus how many calories you took in? I'm a big fan of using MyFitnessPal by Under Armour. I'm not a brand ambassador for it at all, but the reason why I recommend it to everybody that's using the Garmin is because Garmin's got it set up where if you maintain what you consume with MyFitnessPal, it does import and it allows us to update a report called Calories In, Calories Out. It's very important that you recognize how many calories are you burning on a regular basis and are you getting enough high quality food. Notice I use the word quality. Now we have to add the second component, and that's quantity. Are you getting enough calories to offset the burn rate? What was the genesis of this conversation today? Stress. People underestimate how stressful it is on the human body when that calorie gap gets to be too extensive. My experience has been that athletes over the course of a week, some days they may overeat by 200 or 300 calories, some days they might undereat. I look at the law of averages. How do you do on a weekly basis? Now, I want to be very cautious here because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I don't want counting your calories to be a second full-time job, but when you are starting to try to expose what could be contributing to negative health, negative performance, negative sleep, and kind of the dominoes start following the wrong direction, we have to start looking at specific numbers. So what I always recommend is at least start with a 4-day food log. Do 2 days during the week and 2 days on the weekend. Your calorie burn rate tends to be a little bit different on the weekend, just like your eating habits. But if we come back full circle, the number one thing that I look at is calorie expenditure against calorie intake tends to be the number one contributor to stress, but there's a caveat. When you don't get enough calories, it's going to negatively impact your ability to sleep. If you follow me for any period of time, you've heard me reference the way that we treat an infant. If you take a 3-month-old baby and you try to put him or her to bed when they're hungry, if we don't satisfy that fundamental, we haven't satisfied appetite, that very core need, doesn't matter how clean, doesn't matter how comfortable the child is, their belly is going to continue to get them to cry because they're hungry. So now the sleep is going to be negatively affected, and regardless of your age, you still fall into the same hierarchy of needs. We have to satisfy appetite before we go to bed. So now look at this in the rearview mirror. You have a high calorie burn rate, insufficient calorie intake, negatively affects your ability to sleep. It's very difficult for the human body to adapt to stress because it doesn't have the nutrients it needs and it doesn't get the quality sleep that it needs. So we start going the wrong direction really quickly. Now, let's put this back in full context for you as well as it was for Gary. The idea here is when you wake up tomorrow morning, how did your body respond to what you did yesterday? If we go back to the Garmin, we use a variable that they evaluate for us, which is called the body battery. You wake up in the morning and your body battery is at 100. How much did you burn during the day personally, professionally, athletically? Your ability to bounce back from that is, did you take in enough food during the day? Did you get enough sleep? Because remember, you've got to have the food, the building blocks, and you've got to have enough time for the body to work together. That's how it rebuilds itself. The next day your body battery should be back up in the 95 to 100 range. Doesn't mean it's going to happen every day because it's predicated off of how much you buried yourself yesterday. If you had a big race, or maybe you've been traveling, maybe you're dealing with something interpersonally, you got to factor that in. We don't live in a glass house. What we want to go back to is when we start to see patterns. In this particular conversation, we were seeing a pattern of stress going up. I hope you guys are really paying attention to your Garmin dashboard as well, because Gary was able to catch it early and just noticed that the trend wasn't going the right direction. And we found that it was insufficient calories. We found that that was leading to, unfortunately, poor sleep, and then inadequate calories, the building blocks, inadequate sleep quality, so the body doesn't get a chance to rejuvenate itself. End result, added more stress, and then it just kept going up and up and up. Eventually, it's going to start to negatively impact your interpersonal relationships, what's going on at school or work. It's going to definitely impact your physical performance. Depending on your personality, most of us say suck it up, push through, and we try to come up with excuses for why we feel as bad as we do, but that's what's great about this Garmin dashboard. Think about what we've spoken about in this video. You have a calorie evaluation, you have a stress evaluation, and you have a sleep evaluation. It's pretty simple to wrap your arms around it and turn these, I hate to use the negative scenarios, we want to turn these negative scenarios around. The good news is if you have the understanding of what we're talking about and you can identify it and turn around quicker, now we're having conversations on, hey, you do have a low stress score. You do have great sleep scores. How are you doing it? So then we're able to take the improvements, good foundation of health, athletic performance. Now you know what to do to keep it going. And then when you see an anomaly, you see a deviation, you know what to look for. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this conversation. Hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable what to look for on your Garmin dashboard. If you happen to have a question, anything that you want discussed or clarified, please feel free to send an email to contact@coachrob.com. We're putting out a video every day here on YouTube, so please remember to subscribe and turn on those notifications. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.